Hey, I recorded a audio log earlier today, and I want to start doing this more because I think the goal here is to capture and have for me. I'm doing this largely for me, but also like in a way that I'm willing to let other people listen to. I want to talk about essentially where I'm at on my like spiritual journey, um, but like also like I'm doing this at a stage where I feel like I've kind of accepted the fact that probably what's going to happen is I will continue to develop along these lines for probably the rest of my life, even though it feels like I've already had some like pretty major shifts that people tend. It typically takes a longer period of someone's life to experience the things that I've experienced, but also how would I know that other than just listening to other people talk? Um, I guess what I want to talk about right now is how it's hard to put a finger on, but like how peace seems to come when I stop like trying to make it happen. Like I need to it's something that more has to do with allowing to exist than like striving to cultivate. For the longest time, I was like, oh, I'm going to. Like, I started meditating in 2021. And back then, I was like, definitely mentally um, agitated. Like, my mind was very restless and untamed. It was not a. It was starting to be a better place, better thing to exist within the context of, but it wasn't. It had to be worked on, and it's been something over the past. I guess we're approaching. It's been actually. It was April 2021, so it's been 3 years now. I'm recording this on July 28th, 2024, for posterity. Posterity, lol. But like it's something that like for the longest time I would like every little bit of time I would like have a new level of like okayness, like stillness of my inner experience. And it's simultaneously like at the beginning it was literally about the chatter, the mental chatter of thoughts that for like I would say at this point that for the majority of my life I had a literal addiction to thinking. Like I it was to the point like I'm like like a decently smart person and like can think. My main mode of dealing with the world was like how do I think my way through this process. Doesn't mean all the thinking was good. Oftentimes it was not, but I trusted that that was a reliable method to navigate the world. And um by the time I reached like the 2020s, it was seeming to reach the end. Like I could no longer. It was seen clearly, I guess, at that point that like my ability to logically think through the world and like understand processes of how the mechanics of this game that we live in functions was reaching its limits, seeming to reach its limits of how much that understanding could provide me with the ability to better actually navigate the circumstances of the world, but to better play the game. Um, and I had a literal addiction. Like I was to the point where like I considered the essence of like I thought that if I wasn't constantly having racing thoughts, that meant I was like less conscious. Like there was less of if I literally equated the tick 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 of thoughts with I'm an aware being. Like if I didn't, if I with uninvestigated, I assumed that the constant flow of thoughts was what constituted what consciousness actually fucking is. And so it like blew up to a head for multiple reasons that I don't have to get into, but I articulated to my therapist that I want to learn how to simply be. Um I at the time it meant like I want to learn how to be able to sit in a chair and not fucking freak out in my mind just about anything, just about fucking existence happening, like whatever silly circumstances were percolating up in that particular day or on social media or anything that I was aware of, like just constantly agitated. I want to learn how to simply exist, without needing to distract myself with activity. Like I would use I suddenly was able to see clearly, even though I couldn't like figure out what to do about it. I was able to see clear as day in that moment that I had been, for the majority of my life, distracting myself from the fact that I fucking exist with constant activity and constant thinking. Like I kept busy to avoid the question of what actually am I? Like the true essence of like where all fucking philosophy comes from, like what is existence? Like what, like I was so completely terrified of those questions that it was better to be it seemed better to be constantly buried in the anxiety of how do I get this next thing? How do I navigate this job? How do I fucking any of the daily life dramas that we are all immersed in? Like that we consider the essence of what makes up a fucking human life is like I was using all, like I thought that all of those things were my problem, but actually the problem was that I was using those things to avoid the real deep problem of wrestling with the fact that I fucking exist. And I articulated to my therapist, I want to learn how to simply be. I want to learn how to be. And it was like, it made sense to me. Like I didn't even really know if it was possible to do, or how to do it, or how to go about any of it, or even that was that notion, that goal fell within the purview of spirituality. I think there was like there was a like a generalized anxiety about death too that played into it. Like what? How does the mechanics of that work? But like we can put that aside for a moment. Therapist at the time, great guy, very very helpful. Definitely helped accelerate a lot of my development in this vein over the years that I was seeing him, and was really really good to bounce things off of. And I wish he retired. I wish I could still bounce things off of him because I continue to develop. But I guess he set a good foundation that I'm able to follow up on independently. Now, he recommended that I start meditating, and I actually made a video. Maybe I think it was like early 2022 that I made this video, a pitch of why you should start meditating. And I gave the story of like my therapist recommended that I read this book called Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. And it's just a guy explaining like the very, very basics of how to do mindfulness meditation in like a completely secular sense. And, like literally the simple notion of you sit in a chair in a quiet place and you breathe in and out at a regular pace, and you focus your attention on the breath. And then when thoughts naturally arise, don't like beat yourself up over it. Just allow them to run their course without chasing them down. You don't fight them, and you don't latch onto them either. You just kind of observe them. You allow them to exist without like what I historically had done was just chase it down every time. Like I need to get to the end of this line of thought, but like the joke is that there is no end of the line of thought. The thought can just perpetuate itself in ad infinitum. Um, there's always more to think about because like this universe is ridiculously expansive. Um, and it's cool. Like I'm not. I guess I would consider those things. I would have considered those things a problem. Now it's kind of cool. Now that I'm like removed from it, which like I think we're getting at 10 minutes here. I want to keep these generally short, probably under 15 minutes. So I think I have a lot of fucking material to discuss in these audio diaries. Because I mean, there's like me going over my past history, and then there's me talking about how I feel now. Today, I feel like a very much grounded in my sense that um the world is an appearance. I think I talked about in my the vlog I recorded this morning that had like shitty audio quality, so it's probably never going to see the light of day. How I woke up, and this is a common experience for me at this point, where because of my study of Advaita Vedanta, which is like a school of non-dual Hinduism, that basically says like the ultimate reality and you are the same thing. You are that ultimate reality, and like you appear to be encapsulated in this body and mind, but they're actually just things that you're experiencing. They're not like you in the true essence of you, what you actually are. So I wake up this morning, and like the world has a similar status. It's an appearance. It does not to say that it doesn't appear. You're not rejecting the fact that it shows up on the screen. But in the same way that like you play a video game and you know that the video game is like not the same reality as you sitting in the room playing it. Not to say that the video game still appears and has a basis for its appearance. But the appearance and the basis they're not exactly the same. There's a lot of nuances of it. And honestly, like there's different frameworks that you have about it based on what stage of the progression you're in. So this is something that I wrestled with. Like at a certain point, like some stages of the Vedantic teaching sound contradictory to other stages, but they're like it's highlighting a process of how you get to a certain understanding, as opposed to saying like if you stop in the middle, like Vedanta essentially has two main steps. And I went to New York City for Easter, and I met the Swami who has been really helpful. He's called the YouTube Swami because he has a bunch of lectures on YouTube describing this sort of stuff, and he's Swami Sarva Priyananda is the name. I went to go see him live in New York at his little. It's just a building. It's just a random like kind of like an apartment building. Like it's like a very basic building in like Brooklyn, which is like a bougie neighborhood for sure. But like you know what I mean. It's not. It's just a fucking regular ass building. And I heard him speak, and he outlined like he was doing. He was talking about chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita, which is about the field and the knower of the field, which is like the field is like everything that appears to consciousness, and the knower of the field is like consciousness itself. And it's telling you like what the main takeaways are, like that the first of all making a distinction between consciousness and everything that appears to consciousness, and then it does the secondary flip of all of the things that appear to consciousness are none other than consciousness appearing as this. So like, and the main thing is like the Bhagavad Gita is like an incarnation of God teaching a lesson, teaching the scripture, teaching what reality is, how to properly understand reality in a way that liberates you. Teaching that to a spiritual seeker, and the form of God that's giving the teaching is named Krishna. He's a form of Vishnu, and the person receiving the teaching is named Arjuna, and he's like a warrior who like is about to fight in a war to potentially murder his family and become king, or he dies alongside his other family. Yeah, not pretty depressing shit. And he needs advice from God, who comes down and says, "Hey, I'm gonna teach you about how fucking reality works." Pretty based, like I don't know. But anyways, I guess to like 2 points that I want to wrap it up on. One would be in the context of the Gita. Like I've been like kind of doing this. I've been studying it for I don't know. I actually don't really know when I started like properly. I heard the Gita for the first time in probably 2022, but I don't think I was like really listening that well. Um, I started like properly studying it probably this year, 2024, like maybe March, maybe a little bit before then. Um, Actually, I don't know. Who knows? But point is like. Uh, I now have this interesting perspective where it's like I simultaneously feel like because when you're supposed to identify with Arjuna because he's the spiritual seeker, he's the one being taught, and you reading the Gita are being taught this scripture. But like the way that I see it now is kind of like the Gita is a conversation between like the ultimate reality, which Advaita Vedanta says you are that, and you as an ego. Like it's a conversation. It represents a conversation that you're having internally about the nature of reality. So like simultaneously, I am Krishna and I am also Arjuna, and that's like the drama of daily life is me knowing in my heart of hearts that I am Krishna, but I have to act in the world with this Arjuna life, and that's like that is. I used to think you had to reject the human. You had to like be like, I am not the body, I am not the mind, like push those things away to find like this ultimate consciousness, which you are aside from those things. And think that like, oh, like liberation is liberation from identification with the body and mind. And I think that there's some truth to that. But I think in an effort to increase the plenitude of my life, increase the degree to which knowing that these things are appearances, knowing that the entirety of the world as it appears is an appearance. That doesn't mean that the game still can't be played. That like I can still it's actually more fun to engage with life knowing that the me, air quotes, that appears in front of people is not really me. It's not me though. It's like in the funny fucking sense, it's like it's the beautiful way that in a video game you call the player character an avatar. Like it's your avatar, and a fucking avatar in Hinduism is the god takes human form and enters the world, and that's what an avatar is. And that's like I'm coming to the point of like I used to be like, you know, I think in the traditional sense like an avatar is like a very special kind of person who like has the full knowledge that they're the divine in human form. Like Jesus is the classic example of a fucking avatar in Western culture, like the only one frankly that we have in Western culture. But in Hinduism, there's like Krishna is an avatar, for example. But in my current view, it's like literally every fucking human being in the world is an avatar, but they don't know it. Like most of them don't know it. And there's actually like a grace to not knowing. Like it allows you to fully be immersed in the game more if you don't know it's a game. Like there's actually a benefit to that. So anyways, we're coming up on 20 minutes. I clearly have a lot of things to talk about. And I don't think it needs to be like I'm not hung up on these videos need to be clearly crafted for like the purpose of like helping someone develop an understanding. I'm just looking to say the things that are on my mind with respect to these things so that I can look back on them and reflect. And if you've been listening thus far, I appreciate it. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. Goodbye.